Okay, so this is QuestField inputting a concrete test I just did out at the turbine project on Eielson Air Force Base. I'm going to go through the QuestField stuff, how to input things. So I've already confirmed the work order. This is today's date, July 14th, 2022. I'm going to click on the work order. So it opens up, gives me the information, the client, Haskell, the project code. That work order ID at the top is the number that you identify your cylinders as prior to casting them. And there's Steve giving me the slump and air limits. Good timing. David Ivey is the superintendent out on the job site. Been working with him for a bit. So to input my concrete test stuff, I'm going to go down to new test. And it gives me these options. And I want to do new concrete testing with field specimens and field report because I created cylinders and I have testing data, I believe. See how that works. So it gives me all this stuff to input. I have my notebook with me with all of this information that I generally keep consistent for concrete pours, the stuff that's required in here. So I have it on my notebook ahead of time so I know exactly everything I need to put into the QuestField. So field sample ID, I'm going to leave blank because it already has a sample ID number. That's the numbers on all the cylinders I made. So ticket, that is from the truck. When I asked the truck driver for the ticket invoice, it's generally identified as either the invoice or the batch ticket. So I'll just input that for 1-1. Truck number, it's also on the ticket, and that will be 5009. Load number, there was only one load because this was a 7-yard pour, so it's just one. To check test the first truck in that instance. If there are multiple trucks, then I would specify which truck I'm getting. Spec group, general concrete. Specification, ACI. And it's loading because it's giving me different parameters that I'm going to input since it's a spec for ACI. Weather, it's actually kind of sunny out, to clear. General location, so I have the plan sheet with me. This is something that you can ask the superintendent as far as like, where is this concrete going? So where does the concrete end up? That's what your general location is. So I'm going to do cable tray foundations. At switchgear building. And that is how it's labeled in the plans. I could reference the sheet itself, but that's pretty specific. Sampling location, that is where I sampled and where I took my samples and was testing them. So that is, well, I got it in between a couple of these switchgear foundations. It's kind of actually a tricky one for this because I got it in between a few. So I'm going to reference just at cable tray foundations. This could be something more specific like, you know, I sampled it. If they're pumping a bunch of concrete or whatever, I could do outside. You have to reference something that is specific to the job site, not a movable object. So you can't be like at the concrete truck because the concrete truck's going to move, or at the concrete pump because the pump's going to move. You could do like outside project office if you're testing outside the project office away from the pour itself or whatever. But I was right there where they were pouring the concrete, which is generally a good method. So sampling method note, I sampled it from the chute because I had the concrete driver just give me a sample straight from the chute. Bucket would be, say, from a loader or something like that, or pump would be when you're at the end of the pump hose. So right where they're shooting concrete from the pump, you can have the guy that's wrangling the pump hose, just throw it into your wheelbarrow. Generally, don't want to do that. Just grab it from the chute, even if it's like right on top of the, even if the chute is going straight into the pump hopper. Contractor, this is Haskell Corporation, which is not on there, of course. Just gonna do new. Supplier, this was University Ready Mix. That is the trucks. Air plant, I don't even think that's plant 315. That's just what's on the ticket, so I'm gonna do that. Yeah, sure, that works. We'll see if it takes that. Oops, okay, yeah, it doesn't even bother taking that. So mix, this is also on the ticket or on product code is what you're gonna wanna put in here. And yep, it's different. So from what's given to me, as you start inputting things, they will save for specific suppliers. So University Ready Mix, this is 2, 5, 3, 4, 4, 5, A, I, S. That's a new one, so I'm gonna go ahead and click it as a new one. We'll see if it takes that. Time batched, also on the ticket. It's listed as load time. That was 0644 set. So design strength, I do have to input all of these things, and actually Steve just gave them to me. The required strength is 4,500, PSI 4,500, PSI at 28 days. Let's go over to what Steve said. Doesn't specify unit weight, design unit weight, but slump. 6 max, so for minimum, I'm just gonna put 10, min 6. Wait, hang on. So minimum, we'll do 0. Sorry, I got that backwards because it's like measurements. Design error, 6% plus or minus 1.5, so that'll be, minimum will be 4.5, max will be 7.5. Cement factor, sacks per yard, it's not listed. The cement ratio, it's also in something Steve sent me. Water cement ratio, unless otherwise noted. I don't see it immediately, so I will fix that later. Oops, sorry, don't look at that. Slump cone, thermometer, air meter, I don't put that in. It's all calibrated. I have paperwork for it. If they really wanted it, they'll ask for it. So down at the bottom, I hit FSD. So now I'm given to this page. So time sampled. This is stuff, now we're going to my notebook for things I wrote down in the field. I got it at 7:53. You could just round to, you know, 5s, 7:55, sure. Time placed, well, that's the time I cast my cylinders. That was 8:06. You got to be within 15 minutes, otherwise you're out of spec. So batch size, this was 7.5 yards. That was what was in the truck itself. That is a one batch, one truck, one batch. Cumulative yards placed, since it was just one truck, but if there were, say, multiple trucks, if there was a 50-yard pour, I'd specify how many yards have been placed up to that point when I sampled. So now my measured slump, I got a 3.5-inch slump. Not going to put anything for super plasticized slump because I didn't measure that. Air content, that was 5 3/4, so 5.75. Air temperature, this is where I put down my weather. It was 50 degrees out. Concrete temperature, 63 degrees. Unit weight, I did the math already for my air pot volume, and the weight I got on the unit weight scale, that was 145.2. Yield, I'm not going to do the math for that. Water added before test. So this would be, say, the concrete workers, they don't like the workability when it's coming out of the truck, so they ask the driver to add water to it. Prior to my sampling, I would put that in here and I would ask the driver or whoever how many gallons they added. And then same thing if, say, my slump was less than what they want specified, so they'll add water after the test. I would specify how much they do. Sample remarks, if anything was weird, I would put something in there, but everything was pretty normal today. Sample storage location, this is where I left my cylinders to cure until I go pick them up. So I'm going to do blue large cooler. I took one of the 6x12 coolers, large cooler, and it is on the north side of this building where we were doing the pour of cable tray foundation building. I think I could be more specific with the building itself, but at least on my plan sheet I don't have that specifically, which is what it is. I know where it is, so if I basically have to communicate with this sentence or whatever to anybody else who has no idea what was going on or where I was, they need to be able to like find this cooler with how I describe this. So again, I can't put anything like, oh, next to this dude's truck. Well, that dude's truck's probably going to move. So that doesn't really help. I want it in a safe place, but still visible to somebody that's coming on site to pick up those cylinders if it's not going to be me. This is pretty important. You don't want to like have somebody call on you and be like, where'd you leave your cylinders? You need to be able to reference things and tell them so they could just go grab them, get out of there. Yeah. Okay, so now I move down to actually my specific cylinders that I made. And this is really important because this will get logged in so that everything gets broken correctly and on the right date. So test method, ASTM-C39. Test group. This is kind of like standard cylinder sets, that sort of thing for specific jobs like DOT precast. That's like 8 cylinders. Standard cylinder set is your regular 4x8s. Port of Anchorage, I think they do other things. So I don't have my like regular old 4 6x12s like I just did on Eielson. That is kind of unique. So I'm going to do a standard cylinder set, and I will have to change some things. So I will go, yep, okay. So these are my correct break dates that I've got on here. The Haskell wants 1 7-day and 3 28-day breaks. These are all the numbers that I put on my cylinders ahead of testing. Let me just go ahead and put edit on there just in case I did need to change some things. So type, let's see what this says. I don't know what these actually mean. Oh, concrete cylinder. Anyway, some of these are like mortar and a volume, that sort of thing. I know that they're 6x12s. I'm not sure what I would put in for there. That's a good Blake question. So I'm just going to hit the regular ones because it's all right. Site cured, holds. That'd be like if I was keeping one. These will be cured for however long until I get them. Age 7 days, test date, that sort of thing. So I'm going to hit save. If I needed to add one, say I made 6 cylinders, I could just hit add specimen, do that, and then it'll list me another one. And it'll ask me what I want it to be, that sort of thing, but I'm not going to do that because I only made 4. Go ahead and delete it. If I needed to edit break days on any of these, I could do that. Field remarks, I don't have anything to say. All right. So that's for one set. Say I was doing a 50-yard pour and I had to test, or like a 100-yard pour and I had to test every 50. So I would have 2 sample sets. So I would go ahead and do add new here at the bottom. I'll just do that for instructional purposes. And then it should just give me a whole new thing that I would put in a unique ticket number for that 50-yard truck, the load in which that would happen, like the 5th truck, location, that sort of thing. A lot of this auto-fills because you'd assume it'd be the same mix, design. And I would go down to FSD, and I would put in my whole new cylinders, all of my test results for that 50-yard truck. And I would select a group of cylinders, and it would give me the same number that I would identify those cylinders as, but look, it says CO2 because that'd be the second set. So that's how they differentiate them. But I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to go up to the top, say I did that on accident. I'm going to hit the delete button right there. And there we go. So now I'm back to the front page of this work order, and you can see down here below finalize work order, it'll have my test that I did listed under here. Say I was doing densities too, or that's kind of irrelevant, or new sample pickup, that sort of thing. Click on it. If I needed to change anything, like Steve got back to me with some different numbers that I needed to put in here or wanted some more information, it's all good, editable. Save, I'm all done. I'm gonna go down and hit done. And done. And that's it. I'm gonna let Steve know that report's all good, and he can go in there for his inspection stuff and change anything he needs to, or ask me for some clarification, that sort of thing. And it's all good. That is how QuestField is. And then tomorrow I got a concrete pour, so I'm gonna go to tomorrow's date, look at it, and that's coming up. So I can prep cylinders for that using that work order number at the top, that sort of thing. The job number, so for billing purposes, whatnot. So I could see 55 cubic yard, one test, one every 50 cubic yards, that sort of thing. Maria was kind enough to put in all these break dates and everything, so I know what that's going to be when I set that up. And that is it.